speaker is Dr. Kunal Babla. He is a neonatal consultant at University College London Hospital. He has completed 2 fellowships in medical education and pediatric cardiology, and those are his areas of interest. His equality and diversity work is inspiring. He has spoken about it at RCPCH conference, written blogs for college, and published his EDI work. His passion for supporting career development of IMGs has led him to accept this invitation at Softlanding, and we're privileged to have him. Over to you, Kunal. Thank you for coming.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. That was very kind introduction. I hope you're all well. I've got about 30 minutes, isn't it? I've got. Okay, right. So I won't waste any time because it's a reasonably long and detailed talk. If you can let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, great. Okay. So I'll get cracking. So writing a successful job application. So those of us that grew up in the UK and trained in the UK make a career out of filling in these forms. And I don't want to say it's a game, but there is a certain strategy to filling in these forms and scoring well in the selection process in order to get that job that you want. The end goal, in my mind, is not to get the next job. The end goal is to have the career you want. And sometimes to do that, you need to get the right jobs to build that experience and build those skills to end up where you want. And that's why a lot of us go out and take out of program fellowships and all these sorts of things to build that portfolio and build those skills. So what am I going to cover? I'm going to talk about some basic principles and structure to not just preparing your application, but how to get it down on paper. I'll give you some examples. Now, we don't have time to have a lot of back and forth about how you critique them, but I certainly want you to think about the examples that you're seeing on your screen. And I'll give you some of my thoughts about them. And I'll give you some of my thoughts to reflect on and then to go away and practice and hopefully critique your own and other people's writing. What am I not going to cover? In 30 minutes, I obviously can't look at your applications and I can't put them together for you, and I certainly can't tell you what to write. You'll hear in my Cardinal Sins at the end is that this form must be your form, and it must represent who you are and what you are as a medical professional. And so it's very, very difficult for someone else, even someone like me, or especially someone like me, to tell you what and how to write it. So the first question in my mind is, well, what is the purpose of this form? The purpose of this form is dependent on the people that are providing you with the form to fill. And that's something that you need to think about. Sometimes it's for shortlisting, so to help them decide who to bring for interview. Sometimes that form is scored, and those scores are combined with your interview score and other things to help them decide who to appoint. And so it's used for selection to decide which candidates to select. And in order to do that, you need to be able to differentiate between applicants. If you come through the UK undergraduate system and do nothing extra and go through your foundation program at ST1 to ST5 pediatric training and pass your MRC-PCH memberships without doing anything else, it's very, very difficult to stand out, because the nature of British medical training is that we can be very, very similar. Now, you guys come with something different. You guys come with different experiences, and actually thinking about those and harnessing those in your written application will make you look different and will give you different advantages in that application process. So whilst you may feel like you start in the extra time of the football match, and in many ways I agree, actually you come into extra time with perhaps a couple of substitutes already on the field, and you might have some advantages to bring. So rule number 1, prior preparation prevents poor performance. So get your act together, think about this form well in advance. Application forms come out at a predictable time of the year every single year, and it's sometime between mid-September and mid-November every single year, and that is unlikely to change. Okay, so most definitely do not wait until the last minute to start thinking about things. So what do you think about? Well, you think about the things you're going to be asked about. And what are you going to be asked about? Like everything else, these things also don't change very much. This is pretty predictable. You will be asked about your clinical experience. You will be asked about leadership, teamwork, communication skills. There'll be some sort of open space question about why do you want this job? Why you? Why now? Why here? That sort of thing. You'll be asked about quality improvement, audit, research, teaching. That's quite a lot to think about, but that's why it's even more important that you start doing it in advance. So what I would like you to do is between now and I think grid applications come out sometime in the next 6 weeks, take some time, go for a long walk, sit quietly somewhere, do whatever it is you need to do, but write these headings down and write down what you have done under each heading. So if it's your clinical experience, think about all the jobs you've done. Where have you worked? What specialties have you worked in? When have you shown leadership skills? Now, leadership doesn't have to be leading an international organization. You don't have to be the president of a country to show leadership. Leadership can be on a small scale because what people are looking for is elements of leadership and leadership skills, not that you have led multinational organizations. You don't have to be an Olympic winner of these sorts of things. You have to understand what it is to be a good leader or a good team worker and understand the principles of research and demonstrate that you've done some sort of teaching. So write down all the examples of everything you've done. If you write down more examples than you need, all the better. It means you can cut stuff out later. So get your ducks in a row. Get everything ready. Make sure that when the form is out, you're there ready and waiting for the form, rather than having the form landing on your desk and then start thinking about what you're going to write, because you're already cutting yourself short in time. Once you've done that, it's still not time to write anything. What I'd like you to do is to read the form, read the whole form, and read the whole form again. All of us at some point in our lives will have sat a written exam and missed the last question because we didn't turn the page. This should not happen to you on your application form. This is an absolute no-no. Read the whole form, make sure you've checked every single question and that you know what every single question is about. Make sure you understand what the question is asking you to demonstrate. For some reason, British application processes are a little bit opaque. They don't ask you the question they actually want to ask you sometimes. They ask you a question about something else and expect you to talk about the thing they want you to talk about. And that takes a little bit of understanding and a little bit of skill. And sometimes it takes a little bit of asking someone, what is this question really asking me? So go back and look at the scoring system. Frequently, these are published. So actually, the information is there for what selection committees are looking for and what they are willing to give you points for. So don't, for example, in a publication section, spend a lot of time talking about a local audit project if actually you've got an international poster presentation or a peer-reviewed journal article. Put those first. Think about what it is that's really going to score you the points, and think about which areas of that form, is it teamwork, leadership, is it teaching, where are your opportunities to shine, and how are you going to maximize the point scoring in each of those sections? It's worth investing a lot of time in that. Then go back to that list that we wrote under each of those headings: teamwork, leadership, clinical experience, teaching, all of those things, and decide which of your examples work best for each answer. And when I mean that, I mean, look at your examples and say, well, I did this thing. What were the skills and the attributes that I showed in order to be able to achieve that outcome? What does that say about me? What does that mean that I want to tell people about me? And then write that down. It's not about the what you did, it's about the how you did it and who you are and what it tells someone about you. Okay? So then I will permit you to put pen to paper. Now, when you're writing your answers, each question will have a word count. And it's pretty strict. And now with electronic applications, frequently it just won't let you submit either the application form or it will cut off your answer mid-sentence. So you have to stick to the word count, okay? So you must get to the point. Maximize the output from your word count. I'm slightly brutal with forms that are given to me. But what I will say is that if there is a word in your 150-word answer that doesn't bring value to your answer, take it out and put a word in that does. You have only 150 words to make a good impression. Don't sell yourself short by only having 140 that are worth anything. Then check your spelling, check your grammar, check your punctuation, and then check your spelling, and check your grammar, and check your punctuation again, because there is nothing more irritating to somebody who's reading your form than bad spelling, grammar, or punctuation. So you read it again, and then get someone else to read it, because you will miss your own mistakes. We all do. I miss my own mistakes. Rashmi will miss her own mistakes. So make sure someone else reads it for you, because you pick up more spelling errors, okay? Be sure to get at least one senior person to look over it. And when I say senior person, that doesn't have to be the clinical director. That can be anyone from someone who's gone through the application process last year and knows the system most recently, to someone who's looked at lots and lots of forms, to someone who sits on interview panels frequently and reads these forms on a regular basis and knows and understands the mindset of selectors and recruiters, okay? So when we were growing up, we had books called Where's Wally? I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with this. This is a book where it's a picture book and there's a particular guy in a stripy red and white jumper that you just have to find. And what I'm trying to say here is, don't make the examiner look for the gold, okay? Don't make them hunt for the answer. Just show them where it is. Put it front and center. This is the good bit. This is what I want you to remember. Don't hide it away in the third paragraph of your 300-word answer. Put it at the top. Make sure they read that first. Because don't forget, this examiner is going to be reading dozens of application forms. And like you and me, they also get tired and they also skip ahead and they will miss things if they're hidden away. So put them front and center, make sure they can't miss it and make it obvious, okay? So part of the task is not just to make yourself look good, but it's also to make it easy to score points. Make it difficult for them to not give you the point, okay? Find your strengths, give you points. So, writing your answers. This is a structure that I have used since I was about 14 years old. And I won't lie to you, I've used it for every single job application, part-time, medical, non-medical, up until my consultant job application. It works, okay? I'd like you to think about it. I can't force you to use it, but I can certainly recommend it, okay? It is very, very simple. It's slightly formulaic, but it does lay it out in a way that makes it easy for examiners to understand. So, Miss Lambert used to tell us, make a point, give a quote, explain your quote. This is particularly with regards to William Shakespeare, who I still don't understand what he was trying to say. But the point is, you say something about something that William Shakespeare wrote, you evidence it with something from Julius Caesar or Romeo and Juliet, whatever it was, and then you explain what you think he was actually trying to say. Okay? Let's go through some examples. So, point. Make a clear, direct statement about yourself, okay? I am an effective leader. I have experience in clinical research. I have strong teaching skills, okay? You make a statement about yourself. Be sure to refer directly to yourself, okay? Don't make bland statements that could be about anyone, even if they're very difficult to dispute. okay? Teaching skills are very important. Yes, that's true. Anyone can say that. And that doesn't tell me anything about you. That just tells me that you know to state the obvious, okay? So say something about you and say it directly without hesitation, okay? Now, once you've made that statement, the examiner is thinking, okay, well, that's very nice. You're a good leader. Prove it to me. How do I know that that is true? Anyone can say that. So this is where your quote comes in, okay? This is where you decide if this is actually true. So what I'd like you to do is to go back to that list of examples you had and then pick the one that you decided was the best, okay? Make a clear, succinct description of the example that demonstrates your abilities, okay? I led a multidisciplinary team of healthcare professionals to organize a regional teaching day. I have participated in data collection, analysis, and presentation at a national conference. I was awarded a Trust Award for my contribution to undergraduate teaching, okay? Don't be shy, just say it. If it's true, say it. If it's not true, don't say it. You know, we all value our GMC numbers. But the point is, we want to know what you have done, not what the project was about. I don't care what the p-value was. And I'm not that bothered about how many babies or children were recruited in this particular study. I want to know what you did, and I want to know what that tells me about you, okay? And make it something that you can evidence, okay? A trust award or an award or a prize of some sort is very, very simple. You have a certificate. If they ask you, you can show it, no problem. You can give an example or a description of what you did through a research process. And that tells someone that you actually understand the research process from beginning to end, or large parts of it, okay? Then what the examiner is thinking, well, that's very nice. You're a good leader. You did this thing. Why do I care? What does that mean for me? What does that tell me about you? Okay. So this is the bit where you don't leave it to chance. You absolutely must make clear to the examiner to say, I'm good at this. I did this thing. And what that means for you is X, Y, or Z. Okay. You don't have to answer all of these things, but you need to make a statement that makes a sale. Okay. So explain one of these things, what you learned from that experience and how it made you better, or how you intend to build on that experience and get even better, okay? Or what this example demonstrates about you. For those of you that are thinking about more permanent jobs for consultant applications and things like that, actually probably the additional point is to tell people why it's good for them. Okay, I did this leadership experience, I have this experience, and what that means is I can come and develop this particular service and contribute to this thing that I know that you need to do. Okay, that's the next level afterwards. So we have some more examples. This leadership experience taught me the importance of listening and engaging fully with team members. Very nice. Pediatricians love listening and engaging fully with team members. We love it, okay? My research in XYZ gave me an interest in clinical research and how it can directly inform our practice. I would like to take more opportunities to participate in research. If you know what research is going on in that region or that job that you're applying for, now's not a bad time to say, actually, I know you're doing this thing and I have these skills, I'd like to get involved. Okay. This last statement is a little more bland, and I put it in there deliberately because sometimes this is what people will do. Say, I'm a good teacher, I got this award, I was really pleased with it because I really like teaching. Nobody in the history of prize giving has ever been disappointed to receive a prize. Everyone is always pleased to receive a prize. Say something about that prize. What that means is this motivated me to build my teaching skills. I'm going to go and do a PG cert. I'm going to get more involved in undergraduate teaching. Actually, it meant that someone recognized my abilities and I've been invited on to come and develop curriculum for undergraduates, whatever it is that you've been invited to do. Something concrete, okay, that is provable and isn't just, do you know what, this made me feel nice, okay? Something concrete, okay? don't say it if you don't mean it. If you're going in for a fellowship particularly, and you say, I really want to get involved in research because I know you guys are doing X, Y, and Z, and then 6 months into the 6 months into a 12-month job, you haven't done anything. Doesn't look good, my friends. Okay? So don't say it if you don't mean it. So once again, credit to Miss Lambert. Point, quote, explanation, or expand. Okay? And if you go through that, you can probably give a decent explanation for most answers in 3 to 5 sentences. Okay? As long as you're succinct. Cardinal sins. Number 1 is absolutely do not say anything that is not true. You can and potentially will be struck off the medical register if you lie on an application form. Same goes for nurses, same goes for most registered professionals, and I have seen it happen. Do not submit your form without checking and rechecking your form. Even better would be to check it, recheck it, and get someone else to check it as well. Okay? Do not leave any boxes empty. Just, if you don't have any research experience, you don't have any publications or things to write in your research box, you can still do your GCP training and get an understanding of the research process. You can still go to journal club. You can still do critical appraisal in your own time. You can still read journal papers and engage with research at that level. You must answer every single question. My approach is always that if you answer the question, you might not get any points if you answer it badly. But if you don't answer the question, you definitely will not score any points. And on top of that, it might make a bad impression. Okay. I have no law experience, but I think this is true also, is to answer the question, answer the whole question, and answer nothing but the question. Okay. Don't be tempted to take a 90-degree turn and answer something that's distantly related to team working by bringing in something that is very interesting, but not about teamwork. Okay. So stick to the point. You've got probably 200 words, and really maximize the output and make everyone think that you're an incredible team player. Okay. This last statement is probably phrased badly. It's not to say that good answers are good enough. There is something about making a sale on paper. If any of you have ever done part-time, when I was at medical school, I did jobs in sales. I used to sell glasses when I was at medical school. And you get to understand how people think and how to make a sale, and how to convince people that this is a good idea to buy this 500 pair of Gucci glasses that they really don't need because they didn't need glasses in the first place. But using persuasive language is a skill that is worth investing time in and getting people to look at and help you with that in order to make yourself ultimately sellable. When you're getting people to look at your form, be very wary of someone who looks at your form and says, this is absolutely fine, you really don't need to change anything. I would place perhaps significantly more value on someone who gives me my form back covered in red pen with all sorts of suggestions about other things. Because that, to me, in my experience, has suggested someone who is invested in my success and invested in the success of my application, rather than someone who has taken a very quick look and said, it's probably fine. Okay? Look for the things you can improve, particularly if you have time to submission day. Now, there are some things that are a question of style. Lots and lots of forms that I get given to look at before submission use lists. Now, I don't think lists are an absolute cardinal sin, but it needs to be readable. Like I said, examiners get tired as well. And if you give them a long list of things that are difficult to read, that don't necessarily relate to one another when they're bullet points, it can get a bit difficult. Imagine reading a newspaper that was just a list of facts of things that happened around this event. It becomes quite difficult to read, actually. There's a reason that newspaper journalists write in prose, than writing paragraphs, because it's ultimately a little bit more readable, it's a little bit more interesting. If you have long lists, and I've certainly been given, 500-word statements that have been almost entirely bullet point lists, if I'm honest, people are probably not going to read the whole thing. They might read the first 3 or 4 things, and I suspect they probably phase out and stop reading. So if you're going to do that, make sure the gold is at the top of the pile. But otherwise, think about the use of subheadings, think about sectioning things off, and think about using sentences and paragraphs. People often find it a bit easier to read. Now, going back to this thing about getting a form back that's covered in red pen, yeah, read it. Think about what this person is trying to say to you about your form. You don't have to do all of it, okay? It's your form, it's your personality, it's your experiences. So think about it. Does this thing structure-wise or sentence-wise make better sense? Or are they actually changing what I'm saying about myself? And does what this becomes still represent me? And if the answer is that it doesn't represent you, I would argue that you shouldn't change it. Okay, so make sure the form is about you. If you give me a form, because of who we are, we all critique a form according to what we think is the best style, which is why there's value in asking 3 or 4 people until you're happy with what you've got at the end. So finally, be prepared to draft, redraft, and redraft again. I think my grid application went through 5 to 6 drafts before I submit it. My CV and my consultant application probably went through 5 to 10 drafts before I submitted. And that takes time, and that takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of effort. The problem we have in medical careers is that often these application forms, like grid application forms, come out only once a year. So it's worth that time investment to make sure that you put something in that you feel is ready and really is the best thing you can do. Okay. Submit it when you think it's ready, and only when you think it's ready, unless the deadline is now, in which case better to get the form in. And when it comes further down the line that you get shortlisted and you're invited to interview, make sure you've read your form a few times before the interview, because you can bet that the interview panel will have read your form immediately before that interview. They will want to talk to you about it. Okay, they will want to not verify what's on there, but they'll expect you to be able to talk coherently about what you've written. So, in summary, prepare well in advance, give yourself lots and lots of time, spend a lot of time harvesting your own examples from your portfolio, from your memories, from your reflective logs, whatever it is. Structure your answers to directly answer the question, okay? Get your form checked and critiqued, but make sure it represents you as a person and as a professional. Best of all, good luck. I think there's questions and comments at the end, so we can do that whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kunal. As IMGs, we're not used to writing, and therefore all the tips which you mentioned, I just wanted to hang on, and especially of Mrs. Lambert in terms of point, quote, and expand, which it's not the style which we use. So I'm sure quite a lot of us would have benefited from your talk. We'll take questions after Alex's talks, but I'll hand it over to Nadia now. Thank you.
So hello, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining for what's already gone, really useful stuff. I'm Nadia Audley. I'm one of the organisers from Softlanding, and I'm really pleased to be able to introduce Dr. Alexandra Pelivan. She's an ST8 PEM Grid trainee from East Midlands and currently completing her training in London. She's an IMG herself from Romania, did her medical degree there, and then started her training in the UK. So she's not only a successful PEM Grid trainee, but also an insider on the College Specialty Advisory Committee. That's the CSAC, for emergency medicine, and each grid specialty has one. So in that role, she gets to see behind the scenes about how the RCPCH really develops and delivers grid subspecialty training. So from that point of view, she's got really unique insight into what is being looked for when people do apply. And as well as that, I just wanted to mention that she also hosts a great podcast called Paediatric Commuter, which discusses all things paediatric, and that can also give you something good to listen to on your ways home. So welcome, Alex, and over to you.
Hi, Nadia. Thank you for everything. Hi, Rashmi. Hello, everyone. There's a lot of people here. I didn't expect to see. You told me there will be like 20, 30 participants, but there are 137. Nice to meet you all. As Nadia said, I'm Alex. I'm one of the GRID trainees in PEM, and I'm taking an out of program at the moment in Royal London. I prepared a little presentation. It's not, oh, I probably need to share the screen, don't I? Awesome. I think you can see that, hopefully. Come on, you. Okay, lovely. So as I said, I'm Alex. I'm one of the GRID trainees. I've completed 2 years in Leicester, and I'm currently doing the outer program in Royal London. I am the RCPCH trainee rep in PEMISAC, and as Nadia said, I graduated in Romania in 2011, and I moved to the UK in 2013 as an F2. Right. I'm very impressed with the talk before, and I think if I would have heard the talk before I applied for GRID, I would have been a very lucky person. I think a lot of the information that you will hear during these 2-3 hours will be the same, but basically, as a PEMISAC trainee rep, I understood how the panel oversees these applications and how much work goes into it from both sides, both the trainees and both the panels and the Royal College of Pediatrics. What's really, really important is you need to do some work before you even decide where to apply and how to apply. The important thing is to understand how GRID works, what the application stages are. For example, this year, the actual dates have changed. I think they've been delayed with at least a month. Please read the RCPCH website for your specialty, every page, every word. There will be a lot of information there. There will be a person, like a job description, all the specific centers where you will apply will have a description of how the program will run. Please try to find that. And you will find some shortlisting criteria as well. So please, I know the RCPCH website is not the best to navigate, but I think it is a very useful resource to read before you even think of applying. Please be up to date with changes. I know maybe a lot of you will apply this year, but for the people applying from next year, I'm not sure if you're aware of the Shape of Training and Progress Plus. It has different names depending on who you speak to. It will not move. Can you see the slides moving? Probably not.
It's not moved from the what?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It
feels like my. Don't worry. I'll. I feel like one of those old ladies that.
Take your time.
One blank.
Would you like to share it again, Alex? Do you think that would help?
I think I'm really sorry.
It's okay, don't worry.
You could
no. I think what I'll have to do, I'll have to switch. I have 3 figures.
Say again.
I think I will have to log out, switch my internet provider, and be back with you in a second. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe we could take any questions for Kunal in the.
Okay,
Or...
Yeah, please. I'll be with you in a minute. Okay.
If anybody, whilst Alex is sort of coming back to us, does anybody have any questions for Kunal? You can unmute yourself and ask questions. It's absolutely fine.
Hi, can I ask a question to Kunal?
Yeah, absolutely. Go on.
Hi, Kunal. I'm Babla. I'm one of the ST4s in
Hi.
cases. We have worked briefly at King's together.
Yeah, I recognize your name.
I'm currently in general peds. I haven't done community yet, and I'm just starting ST4. So what's the right time for me to apply for grid?
That's an excellent question. When are you normally eligible? It's normally about ST5, isn't it? Beginning of ST5, I think you're eligible to apply for ST6 entries. You might have another year to go yet.
Okay. So, I mean, the right time is not this year, but next year, same time, is it?
Yeah, unless things have changed, my understanding is that most grid programs are ST6 entry, and you apply at the beginning of the preceding training year. So once you're in ST5, between up until about the Christmas time, that's when the applications go in for a September start the following year.
Okay. So
hopefully,
if
you're in ST4, that means you've got about a year to get your things together and start thinking about your form, because it won't be too different to this year's, to be honest.
Okay. Thanks so much.
That's okay.
There's a question on the chat from Anandi. Previously, there were only 2 attempts, which restricted when you should now have unlimited attempts once you have adequate time to complete training. Yeah, that's right.
Hello, I just have one quick question.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, it's back.
That's fine. You can continue with the questions, and when you give me the green light, I'll start again. Sorry, guys.
Well, whenever you're ready, if you and you could also WhatsApp it to us or email it to us if you want as a backup. Should have said that. You're on mute at the moment. Alex, you're on mute at the moment.
Whenever we get to 6 p.m. in my area, the 4G just stops working. Okay, fine. Let's start again. Awesome. Okay. So we were left here, and I think I will leave it like this so that we don't freeze again. So I was saying that for the people applying this year, there will be no changes. There will be just a delay in terms of timings with 1 month. But for the people applying from the following year, I think you've probably heard of Shape of Training or Progress Plus, but basically what will happen, people will apply during their ST4 rather than their ST5 year. So what this means in practice, and where the impact will come, is that in 1 year, there will be 2 lots of trainees applying possibly for the same number of jobs. So that will increase the competition, and it will probably be more difficult. So if you're thinking to apply in a few years, you will have to start working now for your application. Okay, in terms of who to contact, and I think this is very, very important. Sometimes we as international medical graduates, we are a bit shy in contacting people. I think it is very important that we contact locally trainees who have been through the process because they're the most familiar with changes, consultants, and please do not necessarily contact the most famous consultant or your educational supervisor because they might not be the best to give you advice on this. My personal experience is that I contacted the consultant in my local center and I was told I have absolutely no chance to get grid, and I feel like waving at him and saying hi. I did it on the first application. If you are turned down or you're not given the support, or someone tells you that you're not good enough or you won't be shortlisted, please continue working and find someone else who will support you. In terms of nationally, please contact the CSAC members. This is why they're there. They have a lot of things to do and they're not paid for it. But please contact the CSAC members. Maybe start with a trainee rep, and usually there are some training advisors. And again, if you go on the RCPCH website, you will find each CSAC panel has about 2 training advisors, and most of them are extremely happy and approachable, extremely happy to be contacted. If you want to move or you're thinking to move, but you're not sure about the center, visit if you can. I know this is something that future consultants do quite a lot. They visit the center where they want to apply for a substantive post, but you can do the absolute same thing as a trainee, as a prospect grid trainee. Right. Where do you start? I think you should think about it as a war with many battles. It's not just one single battle. Each battle has an individual map, plan, and resources. Do not waste all your resources on one single battle. One thing that I did, and I think it was extremely useful, not only for this application, but for future applications. For example, when I got this out of program job, was to go through my whole portfolio, literally from when I was an F2, entry by entry. And what I did, I classed them into clinical, teaching, research, and publication, etc. I literally had pieces of paper with everything that I did clinically, so everything that would fit into my subspecialty. So for example, for PEM, I've put everything that I've done: plasters, sedations, manipulations, all sorts of things. I'm not very familiar with what you need, for example, for endocrine, but for neonates, I'm sure you can put all your intubations and transfers and so on. Similarly for teaching, for research and publications and so on. I'm sure that there will be areas where you will have absolutely nothing. And these are the areas where you know you need to focus and where you need to throw all your resources. Choose your tactic. As a war with many battles, you need to have a tactic. Please don't get sucked in an audit or project that will only bring you 1 point. If you actually look through the shortlisting criteria, an audit, unless you do multiple loops of the audit and you re-audit, will only bring you 1 point. It doesn't matter how many thousands of participants and how many thousands of pages of notes you look into, they won't bring you more than 1 point. So try to increase your score by at least 1 point in each domain. If you do in research, if you do good clinical practice, and then you maybe recruit in your center for whatever projects are happening, that will give you 1 or 2 points, and it's actually an easy thing to do. I know all of us want masters and PhDs, but realistically, that's very unlikely to happen in 1 year or 6 months or so. So the best tactic, in my opinion, is to try to increase your score by at least 1 point, 2 points in each domain, rather than focusing on one single domain. When you write the application, like the previous speaker said, start well in advance. My big shock was that you need to add a lot of data before you get to the actual questions. So it took me about 2 days to go through listing all the jobs and everything. So the moment they open, just start putting all the details in. It's very important that you put examples in. Whenever the PEMISAC has a meeting, they always discuss about this. They read hundreds of applications. If you do not
write exactly with an example why you are good for this, or why did that specific clinical scenario made you a better possible PEM consultant, you will not ever get the maximum of points. So it's really important that you put some examples in. Send your application to more than 2 people, and that's, again, well in advance. And as I said before, it doesn't have to be the most famous consultant in your department or the clinical lead or anything like that. It just has to be a person who recently applied for a job, a person who went for interviews, even consultant interviews in the most in the last few years, because they are the ones that will probably give you the best advice. Okay, now in terms of interviews, again, a change this year will be that, and I'm not sure if you're all aware, that the actual shortlisting score will not count towards your interview. In the past, it used to be 25%. So all the hard work that you put into your application will not count for the interview. So the interview will be a completely separate battle/war in itself. Please write down answers to the most common questions. An advice that I always give to trainees is, if you don't like practicing with other consultants, which is obviously what people advise, but personally I couldn't find anyone, and I wasn't the kind of person that would go and practice in front of a mirror. But what I did, I recorded myself. So I wrote down the answer, I recorded myself on my iPhone, and I just listened to my beautiful voice while driving or doing the dishes or cleaning. So I just listened to those answers over and over and over again. As you listen, some of them will not sound perfect, and you will be able to adjust and then re-record yourself. And I think what this really helped me at the interview, because when you're very, very stressed, you forget what you want to say. But if you remember your exact words from listening to your voice over and over again, you will be able to overcome that panic, that sort of anxiety feeling, and you will be able to deliver a good answer. Have a few examples ready. There is no excuse. There's always going to be a question about conflict. If you're a good team leader, do not focus on the clinical. They really do not want to know the exact ins and outs and how much the bilirubin was in that case. Just focus. So give a very brief description of the case, and then explain exactly what you did and what you learned from it. I use the Grey Book. I'm sure all of us know the Grey Book, with interviews for, I think, SHO, SD1, SD3. And all my answers and all the acronyms were from there, and they were absolutely perfect for GRID interviews. Have a list of 3 things you want the panel to know about you. So if you've done something special, if you've done something that you're really proud of, make sure that during those answers you mention them. Do not leave that room until you mentioned all those 3 important things about yourself. Don't bore the panel. They listen to the same answers over and over and over again. Make sure you're well prepared, give a really good example, explain exactly why you are fit for this job and why you are a good leader, and so on and so forth. If you've done something special, please be proud of it. There's no better moment to absolutely shine. There will 100% be a question that will sound something like this. Why do you want to do this subspecialty? Why are you fit for this subspecialty? There will 100% be a question about this. Please try not to mess this one up. This is the important question. And you will need to rehearse this one and almost deliver it instantaneously. No matter how they ask the question, the answer will approximately have to be the same. Now, please be honest with yourself. If you don't have time, clinical, family, it's really difficult. It's absolutely difficult to do this. Please think about an out of program. It is highly encouraged by the college, and it will be from when the shape of training goes into place, it will be even more encouraged by the college, because everyone understands that you will not have the same clinical experience before you apply for GRID. And the CSACs will have to adjust to that. So you'll only be ST4. So obviously you wouldn't have done all the things that you do by the time you're ST5, ST6. So take an out of program if you want to gain more experience in a certain field. Talk to your family. Are you willing to move? It reduces the stress if you have an open and honest discussion about them. And please read the job descriptions. Again, every single center will have to prepare a 1-page, 2-page document where they describe exactly what it entitles, what the job entitles there. Again, it reduces stress and it avoids disappointment. For example, in PEM, in certain centers, you still have to cover general pediatrics, which is something that a lot of the trainees did not know before they applied. So again, that reduces stress and avoids disappointment. I think I'm well over time, but if you have any further questions, please email me. I'm more than happy to answer. This is obviously not the PEMI SACs. I haven't requested their approval before I've put this together. I'm probably not the best person to oversee your application. I'm still a trainee, but I'm more than happy to discuss anything that you really want to discuss with me. I've been in your shoes only a year and a half, 2 years ago, so I know exactly how you feel.